And good afternoon, Muskegon. It's your man, Gregory T. Roberts. Welcome to Torrendon 2 for this June 18th, 2021. Happy Juneteenth weekend. And don't forget about the activities happening around Muskegon County. Celebrate Juneteenth, please. And if you don't know about it, ask somebody. If you don't have somebody to ask, call a radio station and we'll explain it. Actually, this is a holiday not only for us, it's for everyone. You just got to think about it. So we'll explain that to you later. A couple things, housekeeping notes. As you know, if you're listening to it and you want to watch this show, or if you like to take part of it right now, you can go to our web Facebook sites, WUVS 103.7 The Beat or M106. Also, these shows are repeated, so you can constantly watch them if you don't get a chance to watch it or you want somebody else to watch the show. Also, let's talk about today's weather. Today is Friday, of course. High of 81, low of 70 degrees. Tomorrow, Sunday and Monday, all 50% chances of rain. High of 77 tomorrow, low of 63. Sunday, high of 82, low of 57. And Monday, high of 72, low of 54. How you doing, Muskegon? I'm doing good. As I said, I'm your host, Gregory T. Roberts. We have a very important subject that we need to talk about, and we're going to do it in two segments. And some of the things you've been hearing, like, they don't want to go back to work because they just want to get that unemployment money. I'm sure you heard that, or some of you feel that way. We're going to talk about that and we're going to break it down. And I can't think of no better person than the person that I have today. She is excited about what she does. Brittany happens to be the talent solutions director of West Michigan Works. And I want to thank them for being a sponsor of this radio station. Brittany Lenertz.
Good job, you got it.
I got it. I've been practicing all day.
It paid off.
All day. So, Brittany, the first thing I want to do is welcome you to the show, let you know that you have a platform. Anytime if you want to come here, you can come here. But we have a lot of stuff that we have to break down. First thing, and these are some of the things that I have been hearing, okay? So I'm going to play Dumb Joe Blow, okay? I'm just be dumb, all right? They just want the money. They just sitting out there. They just want to be lazy and collect money. True or false?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's true of some people. I can't say it's false of everyone. But we know that the situation is a lot more complicated than just that. Workforce, situations always are more complicated than they look on the surface. And thanks for having me on the show. I want to say also happy Juneteenth Eve. Is that the
yeah?
Is that the right reading right now?
We're taking the whole weekend. It's
Yeah.
Juneteenth Eve, but it's Juneteenth tomorrow.
Happy week of Juneteenth. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we know that there are across the nation, there are millions of people not working, and there are millions of job openings right now. And that is true in West Michigan. It's certainly true in Muskegon County, maybe not millions, but, hundreds of job openings, hundreds of people not working. Mm-hmm. And why do we have this mismatch, is really the question. When you look at statistics right now, we know that, a year ago or May of 2020, our unemployment rate was definitely double digits. In Muskegon County, I think it was around 30%. That unemployment rate today is much lower. It's about, I saw this morning, 7%, which is a little bit higher than the rest of the region, but still, a really low percentage. But I think that doesn't tell a true story, because when you look at our workforce and the number of people who are active in the workforce, that number has shrunk considerably.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people who are either working or actively seeking work is much lower than it was.
Now, now you guys did something which we tell people is to get educated. If you
Yeah.
have you need an answer to a question or question to an answer, you go out. You guys did. You went out and said, "Listen, we need to figure out why people are not coming back to work." And you
Yeah.
went and did. What did you guys do?
Well, so I sat here, so this was late fall of 2020, as things were starting to open back up a little bit and employers were starting to hire people again. But we were trying to engage with people at West Michigan Works and get people, into training and into employment, and nobody was coming to us. And
Mm-hmm.
we were hearing the same thing from employers, that they had job openings and couldn't find anybody. I finally just said, can we ask? Like, I can sit here and guess, and we can try a whole bunch of different things, but like, let's just ask. Let's go to the people who are in the situation right now. And we sent out a survey to, well, we partnered with the Calvin University Center for Social Research. And I'm so glad we did that. They really helped us craft a phenomenally good, I think, survey with some really rigorous questions and some really good results.
Okay.
And helped us kind of analyze some of those. But really, we sent out the survey to about 10,000 people, and just over 800 responded, which sounds pretty low, but it's actually a pretty good response rate when you're emailing out surveys. And
Right.
really felt like we got a good representation of our region and of our communities, in terms of demographics, age, race, gender. Really pretty well reflected our workforce in the region.
Okay, so you have a wide range. You had a full group of everyone.
Yep.
And so what did that report tell you about why people are not coming back to work?
Well, there's a whole myriad of reasons, but there are barriers both to looking for work, like finding work, and then even if I find work, do I have everything I need in place in order to go to work every day?
Mm-hmm.
And we broke the survey down kind of into three sections. So what are the barriers to looking for work? What are the barriers to actually working? And then if these solutions were offered, how likely would you be to take advantage of us? We asked about some specific solutions.
Okay.
And so what we found, the top really three things at this point are wages. There's a mismatch in wages and what people need in order to make going to work worthwhile for them. Right. Skills mismatch. So maybe I've been working for many years, and this is, when we talk about a skills gap, most people think, well, the workforce doesn't have any skills and they need more skills. And that's not really what the survey kind of revealed. It's that people have been working and have a lot of skills, but that the jobs available don't match the skills that they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're having a hard time finding the right job. And then if you have kids, school age or younger kids, childcare is a huge issue. Huge issue. So those were really the top three things. But something that was also really surprising, kind of as late as we ended up doing the survey, which would have been January, February of 2021, people still pretty concerned about health and how seriously are employers taking the health of their employees? Mm-hmm. How do I know that I'm going to be safe if I go back to work? And just this kind of general anxiety about that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we were to do the survey today, a couple months later, I don't know if that would still be true or not. I think that there are a surprising number of people who still carry some of that anxiety about re-entering the workforce and safety plans of employers.
Mm-hmm. There was another group that I was when I was going through the study was educated people with degrees that they wanted to return back to work, but they want to return to a job in the field that they went to school.
Yeah.
Instead of being working, let's say McDonald's or somewhere else.
Or even, in manufacturing, which is paying great, but if I went to school to be in a professional office career of some sort, that's not necessarily, the work that I want to do. I think there are some things that employers can do too, and job seekers, looking at not just degrees, what degrees are required for some of these jobs, but what are the actual competencies that are required? What do I really need in an employee to do this job? And if we start breaking down jobs like that, instead of just making blanket statements about, I need a bachelor's degree in this area, we can find people who have great skills and who would fit really well in that company. But right now they're getting weeded out because they don't have the exact credential or degree that employer is looking for.
So what happened? We all of a sudden we come out of a pandemic, and everybody's hiring.
Right.
Everybody's hiring, but we got a problem. So what happened?
This is we spend a lot of time at West Michigan Works and with our partners talking about this. The thing about this recession is that it was completely different than any recession we've ever experienced. Nobody in history has experienced a recession like this, where it wasn't this kind of slow, gradual decline, or even, a faster decline, but we saw it coming. It was an immediate, sudden, overnight, everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And shut down for months. And people experienced different, I can say as a working parent, we've talked about, I really enjoyed having to stay at home and not having this incredibly busy schedule and being pulled in 100 different directions. And, there were aspects of that I really enjoyed. And I think there are some families who really evaluated, do we want to go back to what we were doing before? Mm-hmm. But I think too, it just exacerbated some of the issues that we know were there. Just like COVID, really shed a light on other disparities in our country, in our nation, locally, in healthcare and access to healthcare, in
right.
All of the racial injustice and inequities that just really came to light in 2020. And the nation was seeing what was already there, what, so many of us knew existed, but suddenly it's in a spotlight. The same kind of things happened in the workforce, where there are many studies that have been done. I really looked at one pretty closely called The Demographic Drought, done by a group called EMSI, who said pre-COVID, 70% of employers were already saying that they were experiencing a talent shortage. And so when the economy shut down overnight, all COVID really did was accelerated the problem that was coming anyway.
Wow.
And so now we have the spotlight on this problem. People wanting to work fewer hours, people wanting to have more flexible hours, people looking for, a work-life balance unlike any we've experienced in generations probably. That all just really sped up. And now people are evaluating, what do I want to do? I will say the unemployment has made that possible for some people. The unemployment payments and the extended benefits and all of that has made it possible for people to make some of those life decisions. And when those go away, I think we will see a bump in people returning to work. But I don't think that's the silver bullet. And I could be wrong. This is my opinion, but I don't think that's the silver bullet that so many people think it is. I think there are a lot of buttons and levers we're going to have to push and pull in order to get that those workforce numbers back up to where we need it to stay viable in our economy.
Okay, so speaking of buttons, several things happened. A couple companies announced that they're going to mandate that their employees start coming to work. In Lansing, yesterday and today, they are voting. It passed the House. Now it's at the Senate to get people to work, to eliminate the $300 that people are receiving. So that just happened. Also, that the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, just survived the Supreme Court. Now, how does all this mesh? You say these three things that just happened in 24 hours. How does that help or hurt the employees or employers?
Yeah, this is where it gets so complex, right? Like it's not just an easy solution. There's not just a single answer. So I'll talk about what I know the most about, and that is the $300 unemployment payment. So that is the additional payment from the federal government. That's not the state unemployment. If you qualify for state benefits, that continues for whatever time period you're eligible for. This is the additional $300 a week payment. And I would say, like I said, I think when that goes away, yes, some people will absolutely return to work. But unless we deal with some of the issues that are keeping people from working, like childcare, like transportation, like needing more flexible hours, different hiring practices, all of those kinds of things, it's going to remain a problem. People aren't just going to be able, well, now that I don't have $300 a week, all those other problems don't just go away. We've got to find some solutions to some of those other issues that are keeping people from the workforce. I think that, as I mentioned before, studies have shown this was not just a COVID issue. This is a long-term problem that was coming. COVID accelerated. We've got some long-term issues to deal with ahead of us, and companies, I think, really need to look at what kind of culture are we creating. One of the things that came out of our study was that 25% of people of color said they did not feel welcome in the workplaces that would hire them. So what are we doing about not just attracting diverse talent, but what are we doing to retain diverse talent and making sure that all people feel part of the culture and part of the environment? And
you did just say
what's important to people. I heard from some employers this morning saying, we heard from mothers that they need part-time hours, and those part-time hours need to be while their kids are in school. So we said, well, let's start a shift at 8:30 and end it at 2:30. It's those kind of solutions that are going to make people want to work for you and stay working for you, rather than just saying, stop being lazy and come back to work.
How discerning is that 25% of minorities don't feel comfortable applying or working for companies?
So that was one of the questions in our survey. One of the barriers to working, we worded it, places that would hire me, places I would want to work. I should look at it, but it's basically that I don't feel welcome. I won't feel welcome at places that would hire me. And so what are we doing about that? It's not just enough to say, well, we want to hire a diverse workforce. We've got to really look at what that means and how are we creating places for all people, and not just some people.
One of the things that I hear over and over again, that people say that people need to develop a work ethic, and so they need to accept a lower wage. But you're 39 years old, 40 years old, you have kids and stuff like that, and you need to get paid a wage that, instead of working 2 jobs and 3 jobs, which is not necessarily good. You have kids to raise, and we need you home raising those kids. So how do we address that problem?
Yeah, that's another really complex issue, and a lot of opinions and a lot of differing opinions on this.
A ton of opinions.
I will say that we have to value people. If we really want to attract and retain a workforce, then we have to value them and the skills that they bring. I don't know that it makes sense for somebody who has to go to school to do the job, not just the issue we were talking about before, like we're going to require everybody to have a bachelor's degree, but there are some positions that absolutely require a really highly developed skill set. Do I think that should be paid the same as, an entry-level fast food position? Probably not. But if I as an employer want to attract and retain a workforce, then I'm going to have to do things that are going to attract and retain that workforce, whether you agree or disagree with
Right.
what should be paid. Like no one is going to be forced to work anywhere. And so how are you creating places where people want to work for you? I think that's really where the question boils down to. There's all kinds of ideas and thoughts around, raising the minimum wage, and without getting into all of that, that's also a really complex issue that affects not just those entry-level jobs, but all of those other jobs that are in a pipeline, or a pathway for employers. But what it really comes down to is, do you want people to work for you, and what are you doing to make that happen?
Let me just say it for you, Brittany. Raise the minimum wage, please. Just raise it, okay? All right, I said it. Brittany, we'll just keep her that wage where she at. Now, all right.
My personal opinion sometime when I'm not representing, an organization, but
no, but in that study, you guys talked about $15. That's not necessarily going to do it. Maybe it's $17, or I was watching the webcast, and there was some talk about that.
Yeah. So where, 2 years ago, it was a lower wage than it is today. Significantly lower, what we would have said 2 years ago, even a year ago. Yeah, it seems like employers who are paying less than $17 an hour, and I'm not talking fast food. I'm talking, manufacturing, employers that have pathway development within it. $17 an hour is about, where people will start looking right now. And I think the other really important thing to realize is it's not just the wage. It's not just the hourly wage. It's the other benefits. It's potential for flexibility. It's really important.
I think it's very important that you just say what you just said again, because it's not just the wage. And I like the example that you used earlier, that a mother or a father may need to work 8 to 2, or
Yeah.
because of childcare. And I think some of the employers are getting that they need to have flex hours, or change up how they schedule people so they can get people to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk about that as an issue for mothers. You're right; it's absolutely an issue for fathers. It does seem to be a topic when we look at the survey by gender that's really impacting women coming back into the workforce. And I can talk all day about that, but
please.
The reality is, in Michigan, 130,000 women left the workforce.
Say that again, and say, what does it mean they left the workforce?
Yeah, so in 2020, 130,000 women in Michigan alone left the workforce. That means they're not looking for work. They're not just working. They're not looking for work. They are out of the work, what we would consider the pool for our workforce in Michigan. And when you look at issues like the fact that women make about 75 cents for every dollar that white men make, and then I'm looking at the issue of childcare, and not just availability of childcare, but also the expense of childcare. Is it worthwhile for me to go back to work? Does it even make sense? If I have kids that I'm going to have to put full-time in daycare, is the wage that I'm going to earn even worth doing?
Isn't that amazing that it was 2021 and we're dealing with this issue of men and women making separate wages?
And then when you look at women of color, it's even, so I just gave the aggregate number of all women. When you break it down by ethnicity and race, it is even more pathetic.
Oh my gosh. Erica said, unfortunately, large corporations are animating these jobs. For example, Walmart, Lowe's are using more self-checkouts, which I can't stand, by the way. They find ways to run a leaner company, and many of these jobs will never come back. Small businesses are stuck in the middle and aren't able to compete with higher wages. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an issue. But it is also, I will say, like, to play devil's advocate a little bit, it's also a cyclical issue. If employers can't find people to fill those jobs, then they're going to work even harder at automating those so that they can stay viable and in business. We're seeing that the grocery store is a great example, but you see that certainly in manufacturing. You see it across IT, of course. You see it in really every sector that we deal with, except for maybe some of those like retail and hospitality positions. But then we need to upskill a workforce so that they can run some of those machines and program some of those machines. And, you know, there will always be the jobs will change. And again, I'm oversimplifying. The jobs will change, but there will always be jobs. But are we preparing a workforce to do those jobs?
Areas that we can continue to raise the minimum wage, but prices on everything else goes up too. What do you think?
I think it's true. This is not my area of expertise, but if McDonald's, since we've used them a couple times, if McDonald's has to pay higher wages, which by the way they are just of their own accord, they're not being forced to, then yeah, I think that those costs get passed on to the consumer.
Yeah, let me address a little bit of that. You know, we can't continue to pay. What is the pay right now?
It's nine.
Nine.
It's nine. It just went up 65 or something like that.
965. You cannot pay somebody that's trying to pay. I want you to imagine that you're an adult with a couple kids, and you're making minimum wage. Now, is minimum wage a wage maybe to start some people? You got an ice cream store or whatever to train teenagers, yes. But adults with kids making that wage. So, but I also with that will say that if you're a union job and you're making $46 an hour sweeping the floor, we got to have some balance somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many of those jobs exist anymore, though. You know, 2009, 2010, so much of that, what was maybe an imbalance kind of shifted a little bit. Not that they don't exist, but that's a much rarer instance. I like what the person just said, too. Like, when I offer more, I get better loyalty and better work from people. And when you start looking at our workforce in that lens, instead of what I have to do or what I'm forced to do, I think that's a great long-term strategy.
Right. Let's go back to that question. It said my restaurant always performs better because I've always valued my team members more than the minimum wage. I had a kid, 17, that came in for his first job. I asked him what do you expect for his pay rate? He said meekly minimum wage at that time, $8.65 an hour. I offered him 11. I said to him, I expect more than the minimum wage work effort, so I pay more than the minimum wage. Wait a minute. We need more people like you. Instant loyalty.
My daughter come work for you?
Yeah, more team members always were offered meals, shift meals. We try to eat together. What about that? I mean, what that guy just said.
Culture is so important. You know, the wage that you're offering people, that is absolutely a piece of it. People are motivated by money. People need money. That's absolutely true. But culture is so much a part of loyalty and longevity and retaining employees. It's really important.
Now, I'll tell you, we ran a catering business, and similar to that person, employees were always the first ones to get paid. I was the last one to get paid, which meant I didn't get paid for several years. We always fed our employees. We always sent food home. And guess what? We very rarely lost employees.
Yeah, when you look at turnover and the cost of turnover and the cost of trying to attract, your money is almost always better invested in retaining.
So, so now we have this problem. It's employers are offering incentives to get employers to come work with them. The president is now talking about the infrastructure bill that they're trying to get through Congress to offer better jobs. What is that going to do when we have not a lot of workers right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that our economy will be impacted if we don't get people back to work and back in the workforce. But, the other piece of that is looking at how we hire differently. Those jobs that are going to be created are skilled jobs. It's not necessarily somebody off the street, but is an employer willing to take somebody off the street who fits culture, who is willing to learn, who has maybe experience somewhere else, and train them to do those tasks that are involved in that? Or are you willing to look at, somebody who has a set of skills in one industry and they're going to transfer into this industry? We've got to start looking at that differently if we're going to attract new employees.
Okay, so let's talk about those new employees. Well, as a new employee, I'm going out there. What are some of the things that I should look for instead of trying to look for getting the big buck, get the $17, $18, $19 an hour? I'm just a new kid out of high school trying to get a job. What are some of the things that I need to look for?
Great question. So I think look for a company who's willing to train. Look for a company who is, and there are a lot around here in Muskegon, look for a company who is willing to take you entry level without maybe many skills or experience and has an internal training program. Maybe they have apprenticeship programs where you can learn, you can even go to school while you're earning a wage and can look at that that pathway within that company. That is huge. And a company who, looking for a company who's willing to invest in their employees, not just in wages, but in all these other things that we're talking about, I think is one of the best things you can do in order to start your career off well. Really figure out where can I go that they're going to invest in me as an employee. Of course, that benefits the company, but it also benefits the individual.
We have somebody from Facebook. Turnover rate in the restaurant biz will doom you to being chained to your building. My restaurant always ran the lowest turnover rates compared to my peer groups. How do you get like this person?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's the same person before who talked about culture and creating, a space where employees felt valued and came together and all of those things. That is all huge in that retention and low turnover. I think too, I heard from an employer this morning who flat out asks their employees, what are the things that are making it hard for you to stay our employee? And, did their own kind of internal survey. And really heard a lot of the same things we heard from people who are out of work, from their own employees who are already working for them. They're hearing the same things: transportation, childcare, and coming up with creative solutions to some of those problems and looking at your employees. Many people say that people are their greatest asset. Not everyone acts that way.
All right. Okay. Now let's move the age up here. I'm a little older. I'm a little older. I have kids. We have responsibilities. I can't necessarily take that $9.65 an hour, but yet I got to get back to work. I got to do something. How do we get this person back in the workforce?
Yeah, I think look at what experience you have. Take assessment of your skills, some of those skills that can either transfer into another industry or sector. I can't, we haven't talked about this at all, but I can't emphasize enough the importance of training and lifelong learning.
Right.
At one point in our history, you could go to school for a thing and be that thing for the rest of your life. That's not the case anymore. We talked about automation before. So even if you go to work and have a skill and you go to work for someone, that job is going to change. And unless you're in a space where you can continue to learn and grow with your company, with your industry, you will get left behind, unfortunately. And so
Mhm.
what are those things? And I'm not talking, 4-year degrees right now. I'm talking credentials, short-term certificate programs, and start there. Find, like I said, find a company that's going to invest in their employees and has a training program, has an apprenticeship program where you can continue to grow and learn and grow those skills. Um, if you can right now, if you are somebody who is not working and you're able to make that work, I would really encourage you to get into some sort of training program if you don't have that in a high demand area. Even if it's a short-term certificate that you can do, in a few weeks or a few months,
Right.
that is going to get your foot in the door somewhere where you can continue then to grow with that company.
Now,
If you don't have that training, you know, I hate to see people feel stuck and feel like they don't have options. And education and training is one of the best ways to
right.
give yourself options.
It's key. What before I get to Jack Page question, um, with so many jobs happening, where do you see the future in tech? Like, is it heck in tech? Are we still going to be with restaurants? And where is the jobs heading? If I want to get a job, where should I be looking for or getting the training at?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we at West Michigan Works have identified 5 industry sectors that just continue to grow. We know that employers are hiring at there are options for good wages within those. So manufacturing will remain really strong in our area. It is Muskegon's #1 business, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Even though what it looks like has changed, manufacturing will remain. Healthcare is huge, and healthcare has been, this year has been, or the last 16 months or whatever, a little weird in healthcare, but it's starting to now even out. Everyone is hiring, whether it's long-term care, the hospitals, doctors' offices, and there are a lot of, we think about healthcare and you think doctors and nurses, but there are so many diverse jobs available within healthcare, some of which require some of those certificate training programs I was talking about before. And, we know that employers in the healthcare sector reimburse employees for training
Hmm.
and have pathways within their sector into other, other better paying jobs. So getting into that is great. IT across West Michigan. IT is weird a little bit in West Michigan, and I only say that because we don't have big IT firms like you think about. But in every sector, there are IT jobs embedded. So there's IT in
Hmm.
healthcare, there's IT in manufacturing, there's IT in the service industry. And so information and technology is really big. Agribusiness is really big in West Michigan, and that is everything from the farmers who produce the food and grow the food, but also food packaging and all the the transporting that food and all of that
Hmm.
is involved in agribusiness, and that is growing in West Michigan. And it's growing with intention. There's a lot of focus being put on that area right now. That's really exciting. Uh, Fifth one, I said 4 already, construction. And
Oh man, construction and truck driving.
if you've been following the housing market at all, you understand why this is continues to boom. But it's both residential and commercial construction is booming. And now I would think with the prices of wood going down a little bit, we're only going to see an increase in that. And again, a lot of pathways within construction. One that we see on the lakeshore that maybe doesn't make it into our 5 sectors strategies is hospitality. So tourism and
Hmm.
hospitality. And those are great entry-level jobs because when you learn how to serve people and you do that well, you take that with you to any other job. Um, Healthcare field loves to hire from retail and service industry because of that, because they're people, and that's what you need in healthcare too. So a lot of good opportunities. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to the West Michigan Works website. We actually have a list of the hot 100 jobs
Nice.
in West Michigan right now, good wages. We show you what kind of training you need to get into those types of positions. And for many of them, we actually will fund training if you need assistance with that too.
Let's go to Jack Page. He says, look at the history of raising the minimum wage. The economy has always followed the wage up. Why? People who are working in the brackets spend every additional dollar in the economy.
It's a great point, Jack. And I read an article too that said even right now with the unemployment payments, it's again more complex than it seems on the surface because people are taking that money and spending it. It's part of the reason our economy is doing so well, which is exactly what, the purpose of some of those stimulus packages is that we want to stimulate the economy. So people are receiving that money and they're putting it right back into the economy.
A question from Will Robertson Sr. says, I agree. College is not always an option. Hello, let me say this again. College is not always an option. Skilled trades like electricians, plumbers, and auto mechanics. Let me add truck drivers in there.
No kidding.
Huge demand, are in high demand right now. My company is having a difficult time finding qualified applicants in those positions.
Absolutely. If you look at our hot jobs list, I would say maybe as much as a third, if not more, of the jobs we list are in that, what we would consider in that skilled trades area across manufacturing and construction especially. It is a really viable option for people. And again, you can choose to get into that, whatever that first job is that you're looking for, and you can choose to stay there, of course, but there are many, many career paths and options beyond that too. If you want to start out there and then work your way into some other positions, it's a really great option for a lot of people.
Brittany, you bringing out the best in the world. People, just questions are coming left and right. Jack Page, awesome comment. When you learn to serve people, you learn to deal with all kinds of people, and employers look for that.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter what your job is. Even if you're not serving, a direct customer base, you need to be able to serve your internal customers if that's what your job is, and get along with people that you work with. And those skills that you learn in the service industry, if you learn that well, that will serve you well your whole life.
Now I need you to switch hats, because you deal with employees, but you also deal with employers. What about my bottom dollar? What about, I as a caterer, and what we did, it was always something breaking down. Now, that didn't necessarily come out of my employee's pocket. It always came out in my pocket.
Absolutely.
And so how can I afford to pay somebody $15, $20, $30 an hour when I've got I have taxes to pay. I have unemployed. I just have so many things by the government that I have to pay. I got to take my bottom dollar. How am I supposed to pay these big wages?
I wish I had an easy answer, but I think it's all about balance. Figuring out how do you invest, and truly seeing whether it's wages or some of these other benefits we've talked about a little bit, truly seeing that as a long-term investment. When you can attract and retain, more importantly, retain employees, you are making an investment in your business. And it is much more expensive to hire new people than it is to keep the people that you have. Mm-hmm. And we know that to be true. So in some ways, you can't afford not to, because you will not have the workers right now that you need. Mm-hmm. I've worked in workforce development for a lot of years. I'm not going to say how many years.
I like how you said that, a lot of years.
A lot of years. And the first 14 years of that was a totally different market, where it was really the employers, it was really their market, and they could cherry pick and they could look for people who were just ready to step into the job. and would work for less than they'd ever worked for before because there
Right.
weren't other options. That's just not where we are right now. And it's not where we've been for a few years, even pre-COVID. Employees have options and they
Oh,
are looking for something different. And if an employer doesn't figure out, again, that idea of what buttons and levers do we push and pull, if we don't experiment and figure out some of that, it will be very hard to maintain viability in
I'm
our
definitely going to agree with you on that because I worked as a job developer, and going out there and trying to find jobs for people was it was awful. It was more employers they had their picks where they could take resumes and just throw them in the garbage. They don't have that option anymore. Although I did hear, and you guys were talking about employers having a problem hiring older workers
yeah.
because they're maybe have too much experience or they're close to that retirement age and they don't want to invest time in that age group.
Yeah, this is such an important topic. So I'm going to address that with older workers and then broaden it a little bit. So we did not ask, I am embarrassed to say, we did not specifically ask about age and how age might affect employment on our survey, but it was important enough to people that it rose to the level of notice just through comments. People felt strongly enough about it to make comments about having a hard time finding employment when they're over the age of 50. And, some people had heard from, an honest HR person, one of them said, who told them, we're afraid we're going to have to pay you too much. We won't be able to keep you. You can leave, at any, for another position or choose to retire. We're not going to hire you. But there is a pool of people who are looking to work, who have incredible skills and experience to bring to the workforce, who are ready to learn, who do want to work intergenerationally with other people. And we are missing out on them if we don't figure out how to get past the things that are weeding them out in the jobs, in the applicant process.
Right.
I'm going to take it bigger than that, though, and say another thing that employers, I think, should be looking at, if they're not already, is what are some of those untapped talent pools, including older workers, but also including older citizens, people with disabilities, people that employers have traditionally not hired. It's not always easy to hire an employee, but have great skills and motivation that they're bringing to the job. I think
Right.
you're not figuring out how to make that work, you're missing out on a pool of people that could be bringing a lot of, good to
Right.
your.
Well, you look at COVID. It revealed something because a lot of people had to, of course, work at home. But now you look at some of those jobs. Some of those jobs are not going to return back in house. A lot of those jobs are going to stay at, like, if you have children, why wouldn't you stay and work a job that you can work at home, take care of kids, and work your job?
Absolutely. Those are some of those perks that that I think employers need to be looking at. And it's not easy. Like as somebody who supervises people and
Mhm.
like we as an organization or a small site, we employ 200 people across 7 counties. It's not easy to do. But if you don't find ways to do some of those things that are important to people, again, I think you won't attract the best talent that's out there.
Okay,
As
Jack
you can
Page.
see, I'm still working from home and I
Right.
really love it.
This is Jack Page. Say that 5 more times. It is much cheaper to retain a team member than to turn over the training costs to replace them. Every service industry owner needs to hear that 5 times.
Yeah, I've had personal experience with this recently. So I have a 15-year-old daughter who really wanted her first like real job. There were a lot of employers that she went to, and I had stipulations. First of all, let me say, when you're in workforce development and your own kid is like following your advice and really hustling, that's pretty exciting. I was pretty
Yeah.
proud of her. But I said, I'm working. I can't just drive you anywhere to work at any time of the day. So it needs to be somewhere you can get to either by walking or on your bike. And, here, a couple other guidelines that we talked about. So many employers wouldn't even look at her because she wasn't 16, and there's some extra stipulations on businesses for those under 15. I get it. Small businesses, especially, that's hard. And I totally understand that. But the employer who did end up hiring her, she got her first job. She's doing really well. She really enjoys it. I know she's a hard worker. Said to her at 15, I want you to work for the summer. I want you to learn. I want you to come back next summer. And I want you to keep coming back to us. And so that you go away to college and you come home on Christmas break, I want you to come home and work for us.
Right.
That an employer can see that kind of pouring into somebody who he knows he's not going to keep forever and ever. But if he can get a good employee for the next 4, 5, 6 years to help during his busiest time, that's great. So at 15, my daughter feels valued. She feels like somebody is pouring into her, teaching her, taking a risk on her. She knows that she's going to do really well for him. That's a small example, but if you take that into any of these other untapped talent pools that we've talked about, or retaining that talent, whether you're service industry or healthcare or manufacturing, you got to find those ways for people to feel valued, and it's not always easy. It takes work.
Before I get to Will's second question, how important is for great job by you, by the way, for people to instill parents, grandparents, family members, to instill into younger people good work ethics?
Yeah, I think it's really important. It's really, really important. We did a few years ago a survey of employers who already were saying, they were having a hard time finding the right people and all that kind of thing. And we kept hearing, if I get the right person, I'll train them to do the actual technical pieces of the job or whatever, if I get somebody who knows how to work. And so again, we started asking, well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean who knows how to work? What is the right fit? What are those gaps that you're seeing? What's not working? And so we came up with 9 different modules, 9 different traits that are really important to employers across all industries, across all jobs. And it's work ethic kind of stuff. And around that, because we know that not everybody is getting that. If you weren't raised with that, if that wasn't demonstrated in your home or nobody taught you, just automatically have those things. It's not necessarily common sense. But it's things like being a good team player, knowing how to communicate, knowing how to be dependable, and looking at some of that. We've touched on this a little bit today, but looking at some of that through the lens of the employer too. So if I want to be hired and I want to make a good wage, I also have to make it worth the employers. I have to benefit them.
That's just very huge what you said. If you want, because the market that we're currently in is not going to last.
Right.
It's not going to last. And that you really need to show employers those skills, those transferable skills, that you're willing to work, you come to work on time. Just all those things are just super important, that they will be willing to go the extra mile, like with your daughter, that anytime you want to come back and work, I need you to come back and work. That is very important.
Yeah. And if we can give our kids, whether it's your grandkids or a kid that you're pouring into, you're mentoring, whoever it is, whether you're a teacher, if we can just instill those kinds of things in our kids, whether it's through an actual job or commitment to a team, or, there are 100 different ways you can do that with kids. But if we can instill some of those things into them at a young age where they're not having to take classes through somebody like West Michigan Works to learn those, that's huge. And we've put them in front of a pack of other people who don't have those skills. And those are things that everybody needs to learn. Again, it doesn't matter what job you're going into. You have to look at it. How am I bringing benefit? If I want to make a decent wage, if I want to, be able to support my family, support myself, reach some of these financial goals I have, whatever it is, then I also have to bring benefit. And how do we do that? If we can teach those kids to think that way,
Mhm.
they're just really ahead of everybody else.
Let's go back to Will's second question. Shoreline Staffing has found in today's market, there we go. Found in today's market, employers are more open to hiring older workers, felons, um, just inexperienced workers. Now is the perfect time to get back into the job market.
Yep. And there's a couple of things about that. So right now it is the perfect time because employers are more willing to look than they have been in the past. They're more willing to put effort into making it work because they have to be. And if you don't have to be, why would you, unless you just have a very altruistic sense of, community or whatever. But right now they have to. And the thing I've always, kind of a mantra we always use is it's easier to get a job when you have a job. So like you say, Greg, the market is good right now for job seekers, for talent. It won't always stay that way. It won't always look like this. And when you are needing a job, if you already have a job or if you have skills that you've built from working, you're going to be in a much better place when the economy doesn't look like it looks like right now.
So those people that you get hired and get asked to clean a toilet and you walk out because you can go somewhere else, that is not going to last. Okay, so let's talk about your business. What do you guys do, and what do you guys offer?
Yeah, so we work on talent, if you can't tell that. So we work with employers first to figure out what the needs are, what are the hiring needs, retention needs of our region's employers. And then we work with the workforce to make sure that they have those skills that are needed and help connect the two. Mm-hmm. So that's everything from helping somebody who just needs help with their resume to make, if they already have those skills and work experience and haven't had to look for a job for a while, we're going to help you and help you figure out how to navigate all that. Okay. But it also means helping the kid who has never had a job before, doesn't have any work experience, doesn't have any training. We can do everything from that simple, let's help you, polish yourself to look for work, all the way through, let's make sure you are trained and have the skills that are needed in today's workforce. We can actually, for many of these services, you have to qualify, but we actually pay for some of these high demand trainings that we know employers are hiring for in our region. We have career coaches who help you make some of those decisions and look at, who am I? What do I like to do? What skills do I already have? What job do I want to get? And then help, create that plan to get into those, to that next job. Mm-hmm. And always looking ahead at career pathways. So maybe this is your first job or your entry job, or maybe it is your next step in your career, but what's some of your long-term planning and how are you going to achieve some of those goals? Okay. Helping remove barriers to get into that. On the employer side, we help with attraction, retention. We can we host job fairs. We can help screen candidates. There's a whole host of things we do on that side. But even with the employers, we get a lot more involved too, and help create trainings that they need. So a few years ago, we put together a medical assistant apprenticeship program for a group of employers because they were really in need of medical assistance. Mm-hmm. Worked with the training providers, so we can really provide on both the employer side and the job seeker side a whole host of services at different, varying levels of service. But it's all around how do we get people into the workforce and help employers find the people they need to stay viable.
Okay, Brittany, phone number, how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so you know what? The easiest way is actually to go to our website. So it is westmiworks.org. And from our website, you can find the closest West Michigan Works Service Center to you. We are offering right now both in-person and virtual services. One of the things that COVID did for us was really push us to improve our virtual services. So that's something that won't be going away. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have transportation issues, or maybe you're just more comfortable doing a phone call or a video chat or whatever. We can help you both ways. So really just get in touch with us and we will get you connected to the right person at West Michigan Works to help you through that process.
Brittany, I'm going to join Jack in thanking you We're going to have you back as soon as you're ready to come back, because we have a lot of other questions to ask you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me. I love to talk about this stuff.
All right. Keep that passion. Take care. All right. That was Brittany. And man, the show went fast, but I do next week, Jake Ekholm from the city of Muskegon, Director of Economic Development, will be on to talk about some more of this. They have like 47 temporary jobs, and they only fill 6. Even raise the rate up. If you got a teenager at home or someone that's young, send them down to the city because they can't fill the jobs. The last thing I want to say, and I know we went long, but forgive me, Paul. All right. Juneteenth, they just signed into law. The president will be signing into law that Juneteenth will become a celebration. Thank God. But people, I want to tell you, do not take your eye off other serious issues. We do not have any hanging legislation in this country. What? We did not have the George Floyd policing bill has not been, the Voters Act has not been, Lewis Voting Act. I mean, all kinds of things have not been passed in this country, but you give us a holiday. Thank you for giving us a holiday, but there's other things that you need to give us. Give us, don't try to take our voting rights away from us. Don't make it harder. Make sure that policing is correct, and there should be a hanging law. Listen, it's Juneteenth weekend celebrated. There are lots of events going on. I'm Greg Roberts. This is Torn in Two. We'll see you next week. Take care. God bless.
The wait is over. The all-new Umoja Radio Network, home to over 40 Black-owned radio stations and podcasts, is here for you. Connect to the world's fastest-growing collection of unapologetically Black and proud media, from podcasts to independent Black-owned radio stations, and access to the important news and music you need. Umoja Radio is from our culture, by our culture, for our culture. The all-new Umoja Radio is available right now on Google Play and the Apple Store. Join the movement. Be empowered.
The second annual I Am Her Feminine Hygiene Drive, supporting young ladies from Ghana, Africa, in need of everyday essentials and feminine hygiene products, was a great success. Thanks to the generosity of our community and organizations like Period.org, Muskegon Heights Public School Academy, Confident Cosmetics, Muskegon Heights Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Inc., and everyone who made a contribution. Hundreds of young ladies and village members received essential items. The community made a lasting impact with more than 10,000 sanitation items donated. If you would like to help, donations can be made year-round by dropping off items in the donation shed at the Mays and Wright Media Center, located at 1877 Peck Street, or making a contribution to paypal.me/10